Hello and welcome to the first OC Chats Extra, where I, your host Nick, will go into more details about the points I made in the last OC Chats video on Dragon Slayer. This piece will contain my own personal opinions on the subjects, and you may not agree with what I have to say, which is fine. After all, as creators we have our own opinions within the fandom, and I'd love to hear them in the comments. Alright, warning over, let us begin. First I would like to talk about the first point I made in the Dragon Slayer video, about no Dragon Slayer having the same power as another. I think it's a fair statement, because if we're not careful, writers or creators could fall into their own character trying to take Natsu's place in the story, which cannot be a bad thing if done correctly. Or that the Dragon Slayer had a brother or sister. Creating such an OC in my mind is like being stuck between a rock and a hard place, as some people are willing to go along with this idea and others will reject it. But how would I do this? Personally, I would try to replace a Dragon Slayer, and that's a tough job on its own, but I'll still share my thoughts with you. For a start, there would be a big change to how we get to the outcomes of the events in the fandom, such as at the start of the fandom where Lucy meets Natsu after falling for a love spell. As the creator of this new Dragon Slayer OC, do I say that Lucy's true love is now the OC, or do I edit the story a bit to say that Lucy fell under the spell, went to the boat, only to rescue later by the OC as it went down in canon? Yet changing events would not be enough for me. To make this character different from our pink-haired hero, I would make them an older female OC in her late 30s, who comes across the salamander's love magic but does not get affected by it, as the man she loved had rejected her, or died, leading her to retreat to the bar to suppress her sadness. Or she is homosexual, meaning the magic would not affect her because the user is a man. But again, before doing this I would have to research to see if the magic worked based on the user's gender or sexual orientation. Thoughts in the comments, or if you know, put it there too. Then I'd keep the story rolling with my female OC hearing out the party, getting on board, and the whole rescue begins. Really, it's quite hard to do this with the story, being so well known in most fans' heads. But as you've just heard, I've changed the story a bit, not too much but enough to perhaps sway out of carbon copy Natsu. Still, the point is here, is there a way to make it work? Can we have a Dragon Slayer with the same magic? The answer is it would be difficult. It's never an easy thing to try and change the lore of a world, but maybe my example would aid you in finally doing this. Next, I want to expand on the point about finding Dragon Slayer magic such as lightning or poison. In the video I believe I should have offered the listener an example instead of simply skipping over it. So taking lightning Dragon Slayer magic as an example, we see that Goku and God Sarana both have their power due to them being implanted into them. As such, it's kind of an open book on this matter. After all, I do not believe we have an idea of who the original Slayer was, though again, if you have theories or a solid answer, I'd love to hear them, as this can only help others and myself during our creative process. Still, with this power being an unknown, it's quite easy as creator or writer to inject a young hero or heroine being taught the magic by the lightning dragon itself, who then, like the other Dragon Slayers, go off in search of their teacher. As I said, it's rather open, thanks to there being no official Slayer, so feel free to get creative. However, as an example I would myself, is that the Dragon Slayer OC is taught by the dragon, only then the character eats the dragon for reasons because you could have so many depending on the personality of the character. This leads to the character being the only known user of the magic, leads the character being hunted down by Laxus' father for their power, or even captured as a criminal by the Magic Council before being used by the council, as I see no point in letting the criminal have this power. Again, this is an example, could lead to conflict between Laxus and the character, be they male or female, if they join Fairy Tail or even as part of another guild, be it the character sees Laxus as a knockoff of themselves, or maybe Laxus' feelings he has to prove himself against the original to show he's the strongest. For Cobra, it's very much the same type of plot you can follow, minus the whole father part. But again, since there's no official record of the original Poison Dragon, it's open to the creative minds of creators such as you and me. The next point is about being the brother and sister of Dragon Slayer. Look, after my break, shall we say, I have taken a different stance on the subject, as I do believe this can be done well, but it's really just how it's done and how readers or creators take the idea. As a writer or creator, you should be prepared for criticism. As I said, everyone seems to think this is a loophole. However, being done to death, it's understandable why fans reject these OCs. I still stand by what I said in the video about trying to make brothers and sisters of Dragon Slayers not have the same powers as their siblings, and to try and focus on other aspects that make them stand out, rather than simply having the same powers as their siblings. The point I made in the video are good basics to go off, and ways to avoid being a carbon copy of the Dragon Slayers themselves. After all, these points come from examples I've seen as a reader, and I have tried to make an OC Dragon Slayer of my own during my time as a fanfiction writer, so these points come from experience. Now, about introducing your Dragon Slayer OC slowly, I'll be honest, I believe I covered this well with a good example for writers and creators to bounce off. It really is basically trying to avoid suddenly having the Dragon Slayer OC pop up like a weed in the garden. We have to remember that Dragon Slayers are very powerful magic users, so most would not be hidden away as guilds and other organisations would be eager to recruit these powerhouses. Ah yes, and now we come to a point I feel I do need to explain more, the point about how an appearance does not make an OC. Again, during my break I've had the pleasure of reading and exploring the fandom more, and to be honest I feel I was not fair in that tip. After all, I have most recently been reading a story about a large-breasted female mage who is very weak in her magic, and therefore uses her body as a weapon. By that I do not mean she chokes out her foes with her female body parts. No, instead it's the idea of using sexuality as a weapon, which can be done as a male too. Using sexual attraction in this way I feel could be make for an interesting character, but as a Dragon Slayer most are quite powerful, so the only reason I would see a Slayer using their body like this is either as an evil, seductive character, or as a character who enjoys using their sexuality in this way to get what they want. But alas, I personally am torn on this point, as heroes such as James Bond have used their sexual attractiveness to get out of situations, so my last examples are rather weak, but would make interesting characters if worked in with a good backstory. Finally, we come to the last point, the point of being open-minded. Really, this is not a tip, as creators and writers should be this way, as OCs and even fanfictions are all open to opinions, and with that comes praise and criticism. So we should not be too protective of our creations. We have to learn to be willing to look at our OC and say, okay, what is good and what is bad with them? It's a very hard thing to do, trust me. I have been, and some will still say I am this way with my own OCs and my work. But it is worth it, as with this we can improve our creations and more importantly, be able to be more confident in what we create. And that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you for listening. It is a pleasure to share with you these thoughts, and I hope to read some of your own thoughts too in the comments. But if you're feeling extra kind and think you'd like to hear more, perhaps leave a like. Maybe even share this video with your fellow creators and writers. And of course feel free to leave your own thoughts on how I can improve the show. For only by expressing your opinions will I know how to improve OC Chats. Till then, keep on creating.